Alrighty, everybody. It is currently Friday, March 20th, 2026, and I'm coming at you live from a bomb shelter in Tel Aviv. No, I'm not. I wish I was, though. I really wish sometimes I was a mouthpiece for Israeli propaganda or really any other dictatorship or emerging ethno state. If they wanted to make me the mouthpiece for that, I'll do state radio. Hey, I'll go over the fucking airwaves and convince people that you're, the son of God or whatever you're trying to go for, so you can get cobalt and lithium ion out of the Congo. If that's what you want to do, I'm the man for the job. Maybe not, now that I'm thinking about it. That if they, not really exactly the man for the job, but I don't have any morals, which makes me the man for the job. All right. If you're some sort of Central Asian dictator of some kind who wants people to not flee his country en masse, hit me up. I'll, I'll figure it out. Okay. May not be the most eloquent person with the most diverse lexicon or with the most convincing arguments, but I'll figure it out. All right. I want to be a mouthpiece for Israeli propaganda. And I'm up to 26 followers on Spotify. We did gain a single follower on Spotify over this past week. So look, if I can start from 0 and get to 26, you know what I mean? I think I can convince a group of people that being a mind slave in Central Africa, in the hot, humid jungles of Central Africa, isn't that bad. You know, I think I can convince people of that. But this episode is going to be, it's a warm up episode. I'll be honest with you guys. It's a warm up episode because I got a really fun, interesting, personally interesting topic this week for the main episode. We're going medieval. Spoiler alert, we're going back to the medieval. That's kind of what this has been over the past month and a half. It's been medieval, and then we talk about something else, and then medieval, and then we talk about I'm trying not to go full medieval right now, but fuck it. We might have to. We might have to go full medieval. I'm running out of schizophrenic people on the internet to talk about. There's only so many. There's only so many schizophrenic people on the internet with an interesting backstory that I can talk about. And really, there's not a whole ton of fun ones or really interesting ones. I know the whole Chris Chan thing is, I know that's the big one. And whenever I'll go to ChatGPT and be like, who should I'll be like, give me some fucking schizophrenics who got bullied the shit out of on the internet, right? Who got their heads basically dunked into the toilet of the internet. Give me some schizophrenics like that. And it's always like Chris Chan. And that's one of the ones that I'm just like, I don't know. Same with like Daniel Art and what's that other guy, World of T-shirts? I don't know. I'm not really into the what do the fat retards call them? Lol cows. I'm not really a big lol cow guy. They're going pretty mainstream. I've talked about this before. Um, Gen Z is getting pretty medieval. Gen Z is the most medieval generation we've had since like the 14 or 1500s. Since like the end of the medieval times. Gen Z is the most medieval generation, I'd say. They're becoming super religious again, like violently religious almost, which I mean, look, if I lived in like the UK and it was like a fucking pack of Algerians just raped a girl, like raped a 12-year-old girl and then got away with it, yeah, I could see myself becoming, a crusader. I could see myself becoming something like that, right? Like that's every single day almost it feels like there's a new headline out of like Paris or Brussels or Amsterdam or something like that where it's like a group of people from some war-torn African country who we don't even know how they got here just pack raped a fucking 12-year-old girl and got 12 hours of community service. And then some like 90-year-old lady denies the Holocaust and gets like 50 years in jail. I feel like that's like at least a bi-weekly event, which bi-weekly that's one of the dumbest things that I hear people say, and even I say it sometimes, right? Because I know other people other people say it too, right? They'll be like, I get paid bi-weekly. And it's like, no, that means you get paid twice a week, right? Because if something's biannual, it means it's twice a year, right? Or am I tripping? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but at least twice a month. Back to the point that I was talking about, at least twice a month, there's a story about a gang of Algerians going after like a 9-year-old and getting like a weekend in jail. They get like an uncle who got a DUI type punishment. That's the type of shit they get. Or like some people who got in a fist fight at at like a spring break bar or something like that. Like that's the type of punishment that that Angolans get for gang raping teenagers in Brussels or Amsterdam or Barcelona or whatever. Right? So Gen Z is becoming very Christian like that. They love mocking disabled people, which is a very, very medieval thing to do. They love mocking disabled people, just pointing at them and laughing, right? Like that World of T-shirts guy. Yeah, he's a retard, but he's also like actually retarded, right? That's the difference. There's retarded people, and then there's retarded people. There's people with legitimate mental challenges and disabilities who should be under like the 24-hour care of a Filipina nurse or something like that. And that's what that guy is, that's what Daniel Larson is. They have the IQ of children. Um and they should be treated like children. But they're not. They're not treated like children. Um and Gen Z loves shaming people. That's a very, very big thing. That's what cancel culture is. It's like a medieval type of shame, like group cultural societal shame. Now, usually it's done along like political lines and stuff like that. It's not like the whole country uniting to shame a single person. Usually it is along political lines. Um, Even when the thing the person did isn't really political, it's still the shame comes from, the right or the left. Usually that's how it goes. So yeah, I think the monarchy's making a comeback, is what I'm saying. I think we're going back to a good old fashioned monarchy, which I don't hate. I don't hate a monarchy, but you got to make sure you get a good one. You don't want like a bitch made, like frivolous, decadent monarchy. Ultimately, that's what it comes down to. If your monarch is like raising his sons to be like soldiers or something like that, that's the type of monarch you want. But if that motherfucker's teaching them like Shakespeare and Oedipus Rex, you know what I mean, like ancient Greek poetry and plays and stuff like that, that's not what you want. You want a guy who's like abusing his children, right? Like from a disciplinary perspective, not just abusing them to abuse them, but with discipline in mind, abusing his children. That's the type of monarch you want. You don't want like a Trump monarch, right? Everyone's talking about the God Emperor Baron Trump. Baron Trump would make such a shitty God Emperor. Like Edward the Black Prince of England. That guy would make a good God Emperor. But Baron Trump, this kid who's going to like NYU and stuff like that, fuck no. He should be like in Iran leading a contingency of 20,000 men going to battle against the Ayatollah. If if we really wanted like a good monarchy. So if it does end up being the Trump dynasty, that is going to be pretty shitty for us. We want like a military, a martial dynasty. That's what we want if the monarchy is indeed going to make a comeback. Or we just go full Holy Roman Empire and just have like a bunch of tiny little kingdoms and stuff just constantly fighting with each other, like a feudal type setup. We could be going for that. Um, Especially with a lot of these tech guys. A lot of these tech guys do have some sort of like feudalistic spirit within them. They do have something like that in them. Or I guess feudal spirit. Not feudalistic, but whatever. You guys know what I mean. They do have that. They do want to like control and subjugate thousands and thousands of people and have them essentially be like slaves and just live within their domain. That's what these tech guys want. And that's basically feudalism, right? It's what feudalism is. And then obviously we get the big dynasty, whatever it may be. Um, but we might be heading for a feudal medieval type setup, which I, like I said, don't hate, but you gotta. It's really a luck of the draw type of thing, right? Like that's the world we live in now. In this country is just kind of generally shitty. Whereas if we had a, like I was talking about, a feudal, big old feudal type system, could be really shitty or it could be really great instead of just like this general gray, apathetic shittiness that we live in now. So, you know, could go could be going back to medieval times, especially if we get nuked. But I don't think we're gonna get nuked. And what else is going on this week? Sorry, I'm thirsty as shit. I am kind of slow today. In this episode, at least, I did eat way too many spicy chicken tenders and applesauce, and then I took a giant nap, which is that's toddler news right there. Toddler news is like I ate too many chicken tendies and applesauce, and I took a nap for too long, and now I'm tired and grumpy. I'm toddler maxing right now. You gotta go full toddler. Gen Z is kind of toddler maxing, being lazy, living with their parents, mooching off their parents. They not really a choice. It's not really a choice to be mooching off their parents. Like back in the day when people would mooch off their parents, it was like a choice. It was really like you really had to be a fuck up for that to happen to you. Now it's like you can have a degree from Harvard in like an actual field, right? You can have a degree in like accounting or some shit from Harvard. I don't know if Harvard does accounting, but you could have like a degree in accounting from Harvard, and it's still like you're going to be, at the very least, your parents are going to be paying for like your health insurance or something like that. That's just what it is nowadays. Gen Z is, everyone talks about how they're lazy and they're losers and stuff like that, but I think we've been like funneled into the loserdom almost. Like everything's so expensive, it's almost impossible to not be what in previous generations would be considered a loser. We're kind of in that spot. It's like, oh, you're driving like a beat up old car and you live with your parents and you only work 20 hours a week, and it's like in the 90s that was like you're a loser. That was like you're a fuck up. You did nothing with your life and you took every wrong turn. That's what that's what the 90s was. Nowadays it's like, dude, you're doing pretty good. You're getting 20 hours a week. I can't even find someone to hire me. And you're getting 20 hours a week and you have a car? You're doing pretty good. That's doing good nowadays. Doing good nowadays is living in the basement and listening to Joe Rogan and smoking weed and stuff like that. That is the peak of life for Gen Z right now. No, obviously there is some opportunities left. Um, but when you're competing with people who will work 90 hours in a week for $1,000, you're gonna lose 10 out of 10 times. Americans just aren't built for that. We're not built for essentially serfdom. It's just not in our spirit. It's not how we roll. It's not how we operate. But these companies know that that is how other countries operate. That is how Nicaragua operates. Most other countries really outside of the West operate under like I was talking about earlier, a feudal-like system. A system of wage slavery and essentially forced labor. And you're gonna have to do some labor, right? That's just an inherent part of life. You're going to have to work. I'm not a communist. I don't think, that people are inherently entitled to the labor of other people. You're gonna have to do some labor, but it shouldn't be doing that much labor. Not in this country, not in America, not in the West. Shouldn't be doing that much labor. But it is spring break. And every spring break, I think, people are reminded of the fact that maybe the Emancipation Proclamation was a mistake. Right? Every week, people are reminded of the fact that maybe we shouldn't have fought that Civil War. Maybe we should have just let them keep them in chains, because maybe chains were a better place. for them to be. You know what I mean? Maybe maybe just letting them do whatever they want wasn't the best idea. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I feel like every spring break, the blacks go wild. You know, everyone talks about how, like, when it heats up or when it's summertime, that's when the blacks start to go wild. I think when the blacks really go wild is spring break. It's when they're just going full, almost Mongolian, right? They're looting, they're pillaging, there's unchecked violence across the land, right? When it's like spring break at an HBCU, um, Miami and like Fort Lauderdale have to prepare themselves like they're gonna be under siege from the fucking like Ottoman Empire or something like that. Like when Howard University, which is like I think it's like the biggest H or one of the biggest HBCUs in the country, when it's spring break at at Howard University, the government of Fort Lauderdale is like batten down the hatches, start boarding up the windows. It's like fucking Katrina is coming. It's Hurricane Katrina, but instead of Hurricane Katrina, it's Hurricane Shaquisha. Hurricane Shaquisha is coming to ravage Fort Lauderdale. And they love Fort Lauderdale. Just something about the blacks in spring break. It's Fort Lauderdale 10 out of 10 times. I feel like Fort Lauderdale used to be like a white vacationing spot, and then somehow it became like the black spring break spot. I don't know, maybe in the summertime that's where the whites go. I don't know. I'm not a vacation white. My family, we are white, but we've never been. We're like cheap Midwest, like Germans and like Anglos and stuff like that. Like that's what my family is in terms of our whiteness. We're not extravagant whites or anything like that. You know, we're repressed whites. That's that we're Midwest repressed whites. But so I've never been to Fort Lauderdale. I did go to Orlando once, which a that's Orlando's hell. Orlando is Florida really does have the worst cities in the country. Like everyone wants to shit on like LA and Chicago and New York and stuff like that, and they are, you know, liberal leftist like hellscapes. Or maybe not hellscapes, but LA certainly is a liberal leftist hellscape. New York and Chicago, they've got like that winter time, you know, and winter is important. Winter's important because everyone goes inside, you know. You don't want to be doing a drive-by in the winter. You don't want to be leaning out the side of a Tahoe with a Glock with a switch on it in the wintertime. You don't want to be doing that in the winter. So the winter really, really shuts things down. And I think that's why LA is like the ultimate hellscape. It's because they do have like that general liberal attitude, not just in terms of their government, but like the people who live there. They're willing to tolerate anything, like almost anything. They're willing to tolerate basically everything as long as it's like poor people doing it. They're just willing to tolerate it. Which Chicago and New York do also have that attitude, but they do have the benefit of winter coming in and like driving out the homeless and, you know, getting the junkies inside and stuff like that. But LA never has that. It's always so nice outside in LA that the chaos can just keep going throughout the year, and it can just be a perpetual cycle of people shitting on the street and fucking you know what I mean? Migrants roaming around and all that shit. LA's just kind of built for that perpetual chaos, whereas New York and Chicago, like I said, they shut down. In Florida, again, red state, but I feel like probably most of the cities are pretty blue. I don't know. Maybe it's all red down there. Maybe it's like a fucking casino in Oklahoma, all reds. Boom, got him. All right. That was a shitty joke, but whatever. Maybe that is um what Florida is like, but I do feel like Florida, like Jacksonville. I feel like Jacksonville, just in terms of like how soul crushing it is, really does rival Los Angeles in terms of shittiness. And I do feel like Jacksonville probably is a red city. It's just an endless like gray chasm of fucking swamps and strip malls and just all the shittiest, features of a landscape, both man-made and not man-made, right? Like LA's got the beaches, and you see the mountains in the distance, and they've got like, what's that called, Griffith Park, where the Hollywood sign is. Like all that's like a beautiful landscape, whereas Jacksonville is, it's a swamp. It truly is a swamp. I've never been there, but just Google Jacksonville. It's just a fucking swamp, and swamps are the type of landscape that your ancestors would like make up tales about so that people wouldn't go into the swamps, right? That's what a swamp is. A swamp is, it's a dangerous place. It's a shitty place that people really, if you look at it historically, people really only end up in swamps when they're fucked, right? You look at like the Venetians. The Venetians did end up building an empire out of their swamp, but the reason they got to that swamp in the first place was because everyone else was fucking them. They were getting killed, they were getting like pillaged and looted and all that shit, and they ended up in the swamp. Right? You only end up in the swamp. The Celts are another example. When like the British and the Anglo-Saxons and stuff were expanding into the British Isles, right into Britain and Ireland, the Celts fled to the swamps. Swamps are a place you go to flee. That's ultimately what swamps are. It's a place full of people who have fled something. And when you get all those people together in a giant city like Jacksonville, it just ends up with people taking bath salts and eating each other's fucking faces off. That's what it turns into. And that's what a swamp is. It's just inherently what it is. It attracts the most downtrodden, often savage people in a society or in a geographic area. They always end up in the swamp, and that's what Jacksonville is. Orlando Orlando is more so a testament to like the hubris of man, of all like the negative things about capitalism. That's what Orlando is. Jacksonville just inherently is shitty. Whereas Orlando maybe could have been nice at one point, but due to the horrors of American oligarchical capitalism, it's turned into an asphalt paved land of motels and off-brand theme parks. Right? That's what Orlando's been turned into. But yeah, I do think Florida overall really could give California a run for its money in terms of shitty cities. But the thing that California does have going for it in the battle of shitty cities is like a diversity of landscapes. Like California's got shitty cities on the coast, they've got shitty cities in the desert, they've got shitty cities up in the mountains and stuff like that. Whereas I feel like Florida, for the most part, they're all their shitty cities are like swamp based or swamp adjacent, right? Which, like I said, swamps are just kind of inherently shitty places to live. You can, if you figure out the swamp, like I was talking about earlier, the Venetians figured out the swamp. There was like some Native American tribes that figured out the swamp. Um, you can figure out the swamp, but most of the people there aren't there to figure out the swamp. They're there because they fled. Um, some of them fled the coldness and the disparity. Is that the right word? I don't know. The general sadness that comes with being an old person staying inside all day in New Hampshire or something like that. They fled that sadness. Some people there are fleeing warrants. Right? Some people there are fleeing warrants from the state police. And some people are just fleeing the abusive households that they grew up in. Florida truly is a place that you flee to. Call it Florida? Florida? I guess that's the best way. Like I said, this is the warm-up episode, guys. This is the warm-up episode. Next episode should be pretty good, but it could end up being ass. Who knows? Not me. No man knows his future. No man truly knows his destiny. But I will say, if you took salvia in the early 2000s, there's a pretty good chance you're going to end up in Florida or Arizona. God damn, I'm thirsty right now. Which Arizona is also, I feel like, also a pretty shitty place overall. I've talked about Arizona ad nauseum, ad infinitum. I will talk about Arizona. Horrible. I don't know what we're doing in Arizona. Arizona should be the Australia of America. It should be like our penal colony. We should only send the shittiest people to Arizona to live, which kind of is true. I feel like, doesn't Arizona have like the highest per capita amount of serial killers or something like that? Like they have the highest amount of them. Um, Probably some of the highest meth usage in the country. Um, but yeah, Arizona is also very, very shitty. But my spring break has been pretty boring overall. Did some work for my grandpa, went fishing, chilled out, watched a watched a few movies, watched the entire Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings is one of those things that like my family or like my mom and all my siblings have been like really into ever since I was a kid. And so I've seen the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I've probably seen it over 10 times. And by the way, that's 90 hours of Lord of the Rings that I've seen. Those movies are all 3 hours long. And look, most of the time when a movie's 3 hours long, like when Oppenheimer was 3 hours long, I was like, Jesus fucking Christ. This movie could have been an hour, potentially even an hour and a half shorter than it was. Those should be 3 hour long movies, but still, even if a movie is justified in its 3 hour runtime, it's still a groveling endeavor. You're going to be groveling through that towards the end of it. Um, and so I watched all of those movies. Like I've said, seen them all 10 times before. I could not tell you the plot before I watched them this time. Right, I watched it because I've been getting into medieval shit lately. It so yeah, it was enjoyable, but and so now I do know the plot of Lord of the Rings. I knew like the point of it was they were trying to get the ring to Mount Doom to like throw it into the lava, but really most of those movies, if you've never seen them before, most of it isn't Frodo. Like Frodo, I guess, is the main character of Lord of the Rings. That that fucking thing, I don't know if the books are like this, but the movies have like three main characters. And I'm talking about like three main characters. If we're talking just generally main characters, there's probably like seven or eight main characters in Lord of the Rings, which could make it fun to watch, right? Because if you don't like the main character of the movie, and I'm not even saying like don't like, but if it's just like a shitty main character in the movie, then that ruins the entire thing. Even if the rest of it is great, having the main character be like not even like a bad guy, right? Like sometimes the main character of a thing can be like a bad, shitty person, but it's like an entertaining, you know what I mean, captivating main character. But sometimes it's just like a boring, like I fucking not even like I hate this guy, but like I would never want to be around this guy, almost, right? But with Lord of the Rings, you've got like three different storylines going on concurrently at the same time. And so you've got a plethora of main characters to choose from. You got a few different ones. You got Gandalf. I'd say the big three are like Gandalf, kinda, Aragorn, and Frodo. You also got Merry and Pippin. Those are some fun boys that are doing some fun things. But it's really like Aragorn, Gandalf, and Frodo. Those are the three very different people, and so you get a nice array of main characters to choose from that you can watch. But it is a pretty good movie, or pretty good series of movies. Not a big Hobbit guy though. I started watching The Hobbit, the first one, whatever it is, The Hobbit: An Unexpected Journey. I was not a big fan of it. The CGI, the set and all that stuff, it just looked so weird. And then they started playing like some weird ass music too. I don't know. I didn't like it as much. I didn't like it as much as the Lord of the Rings. It felt more modern, right? Like watching Lord of the Rings felt like watching. It felt like I was in Middle Earth. Whereas The Hobbit felt like I was on a sound stage in Atlanta. or something like that. That's what The Hobbit kind of felt like when I was watching it. And I do know they go harder with the CGI in Hobbit, and sometimes CGI is good. Everyone shits on CGI and AI and stuff like that. Sometimes the computers are good. Sometimes the computers whip out something worth paying attention to, but sometimes it is. I'll give it to them. Sometimes it is very, very shitty what the computer ends up coming up with. Jesus Christ, I'm so thirsty, dude. Those chicken tendies are sucking me dry. Those chicken tendies that I ate, and I cooked up some good sauce. Sorry, I was talking about my chicken tendy sauce, and then I got a call about an upcoming dentist appointment, which I've never been, even as a kid. Everyone talks about how they hated the dentist. I never hated the dentist as a kid. It was just like, okay, someone's poking around my mouth. Not a big deal. I went to Catholic school as a kid, so I could have had a lot worse things poking around my mouth than than like a polishing tool or whatever, or like that thing. The worst part about the dentist is keeping your mouth open for that long, and your mouth gets all dry and shit. Like I remember the probably one of the greatest like physical sensations I've ever had in my life was when you're at the dentist, and they have that thing that's like literally sucking all the spit out of your mouth, and the dentist is like poking around there doing whatever, and your mouth is just like this dry fucking, Atacama desert or whatever it's called, just completely devoid of moisture. Like it feels like moisture has never been in your mouth, and then they come in with that water thing and start spraying you down. That is one of the greatest feelings I've ever had in my entire life. Like that feeling of the sprayer coming in and reinvigorating your mouth. Jeez, it's very gay. Uh, but your mouth getting sprayed in, right, reinvigorates it, and it's got you feeling good. But yeah, never been a big dentist hater. I did have one experience when I was like I used to get a ton of cavities as a kid, and even now I still get cavities. I don't know what it is. I don't really have that much sugar. I think maybe I just have shitty enamel. Like I don't have enamel that's built for modern food, and really no one does. No one's body is built for modern food, but I think my enamel specifically is not built for modern food, because even now the dentist was like, "You've got some like pre cavities coming in, a little bit of pre cum cavity, pre cummities. Your cavities are pre coming right now, you know." And I did have this one cavity as a kid. I still remember it, and I went into the dentist, and I don't know if they didn't put the anesthetic in properly, right? Because they don't knock you out for a cavity. They just like inject some numbing agent in there. But I don't think it worked. It hurt so bad. It was one of the worst pains I've ever had. Maybe the worst pain I've ever experienced, which that's, looking back on it, actually kind of a good thing. Experiencing like that level of pain that I experienced as a child, it kind of sets you up for like not really not really feeling too much pain later on in life, right? Like I played football, and I was a big boy. I was a big boy when I played football. Fat, but also a lot of muscle on there. And I was just sweaty and chafing all the time. And I remember there were people who would quit pretty easily, but I think that one like shitty cavity filling experience, shitty cavity filling experience sounds like you got your dick shit on during, but anyway, that one like shitty cavity filling experience I had as a child. Jesus fuck. Now, now that sounds like I was getting molested by a priest or raped by a priest, and then I shit on his dick. That's what that sounds like. Um, but yeah, that one poor and painful dental cavity experience. There we go. Got out of the gay land, got out of the molestation land, and all that stuff. I do think that kind of set me up for not being a bitch. For not being a bitch. The like having that pain as a kid, it just makes everything else a little bit less painful. It hurt bad. It did hurt. It was torture. It was straight up torture. Um, yeah. So stop. Point is, waterboarding isn't that bad. So stop fucking complaining about it. Right? Stop complaining. Oh, I'm just a guy from Baghdad, and then I got kidnapped in the middle of the night. Then I got sent to Guantanamo Bay and waterboarded for 20 years. All right. One time the anesthetic didn't fully take at the dentist when I was getting a cavity filled. So listen here, Muhammad. Stop your bitching and go back to your fucking desert dwelling, okay? Because I had a I had a cavity that hurt when I was a kid. Never been a big toothache guy though. Sensitivity certainly in the teeth, but never a big toothache guy. Even as a kid, even when I was eating all my candy on Halloween, which that's the type of kid I was. Zero self-control. I would always, and I would go out like with my friends and stuff like that, and immediately I would eat I would eat 5,000 calories of candy in in a single night when I was a kid, dude. I, I didn't save it. It wasn't like my parents took it from me and put it in a bowl. Maybe they did when I was really young. I can't really remember. But when I got to like 10, 11, 12, like that sort of age, oh yeah. I was just eating the candy the second I got it. The second I got it, I was eating all of it, the entire thing. The entire pillowcase. I was always a pillowcase kid, dude. I saw the kids who had like those shitty plastic buckets or whatever, and I pitied them. I said, dude, I got a pillowcase. When I pull up to the Take One household, which I never emptied the bowl at a Take One household. I Look, did I take one? No. I'll be honest with you guys. I'll be fully honest, fully transparent. I did not take one. Often I would take a handful, but I was never an empty the bowl type of guy. You know, I wanted to leave some for someone else to take a handful, which that really is on the people who live at the house. You know what I mean? You can't be putting out a Take One bowl for a bunch of 11-year-olds that are like, right? For a bunch of like children entering pubescence. You cannot trust them really to do anything, right? You can't trust like a 12, 13-year-old to do anything, let alone have self-control when it comes to like sugar and fat and stuff like that, right? You can't trust them not to take, like, the entire bowl is a bit excessive, but like a handful or 3 to 4 maybe. You're going to be taking 3 to 4. Never took a handful. Never took the whole bowl. There were people that would like throw the bowls in the sewers. And you know what we call those people? Not white. Anyway, we call them black people. But no, there was people who would. I saw whites do that. I saw I saw the honks. I saw the honks taking the whole bowl, which I would attribute to my lack of racism nowadays. Racism, also another big thing that's making a comeback in Gen Z. But I would say Halloween, in my experiences on Halloween, of seeing white kids take the whole bowl, but seeing black kids, you know, behave with respect and only taking a handful, I would say that really is one of the main reasons why I'm not racist. I attribute it to that experience of just seeing some little fucking blonde-haired, blue-eyed kid who's got every privilege in the world. He's got monetary privilege. He's got geographic privilege. He was born in the right place at the right time. And seeing a motherfucker like that tip the bowl into his pillowcase in his shitty fucking Spirited Halloween costume, and then seeing little Darnell, you know what I mean, at the next Take One household, only grabbing a handful like the rest of us. I that's why I'm not truly racist. I'll make a joke. You know what I mean? I'll compare black people to barbarians when they're on spring break in Fort Lauderdale. But like true, like entrenched racial, but like stereotyping and discrimination and stuff like that. That cannot enter my body because of how I saw white children behave on Halloween, taking the whole bowl. It's just so shitty. Look, I'm a big taking the handful guy, because you got to do what you got to do, you know. Because we got motherfuckers out here giving like raisins and apples and stuff like that. You got to make up for that loss when you're out of take one household. That's what the take one household should be like considered. If you're a kid out there trick or treating, it should be considered. All right, I'm gonna make up for my losses here. I got like candy corn from one house. I got an apple from another. I got a box of sun-made raisins. Some guy gave me like a toothbrush. So I'll take 5, right? 4 to make up for all the shitty things I got, and then 1 for a little bit of profit. So I'll take 5 pieces of candy out of there. That's what a take one household should be treated like. It should be, I'm gonna make up for my losses. And then the kids who are coming out a little bit later, fuck them. Okay, sometimes you gotta say fuck them. I'm not saying fuck everybody, right? Because saying fuck everybody would be tipping that bowl into your pillowcase and then throwing it in the fucking sewer. That's what saying fuck everybody is. But saying, hey, I gotta take care of myself. I gotta think about number one. I gotta consider number one. That's taking a handful. You know, that's the true spirit of capitalism, as opposed to, you know, the oligarchy just stealing everything they possibly can. Right? The kids who took one piece from a take one household, who truly only took one. You know, if your parents there, okay, yeah, you can only take one Snickers or one Kit Kat or whatever it is. You could only take one if your dad's, you know, standing over your shoulder. Um, but a kid, like an unsupervised child, only taking one out of the take one household, that's those people are meant to be slaves. I'm sorry, I hate to say it, but that's the truth. If you were the type of kid who rolled up to a take one household and you only took one, you're meant to be a slave. You're meant to be in the servant class, the working class. You're not you're not meant for anything greater in life. You're not meant to go out there and carve your own path. It's just not who you are. I'm sorry, I hate to break it to you. Maybe it's nurture, maybe it's nature, I don't know, but you should be in a field picking wheat. The kids who took, like me, 4 to 5 pieces, just like a nice handful, you don't even necessarily have to count it out, but like a nice handful, not a inordinate amount. That's like the ruling class. That's like the low nobility to like high nobility and stuff like that, right? And high nobility, almost, you're not worried about taking one or taking the whole bowl, right? Because you got candy at home. Your parents can just go buy you a bag of candy. Whereas a kid like me, parents weren't buying a whole bag of candy. I had to get mine. I had to take 4 or 5 or a nice handful. And then the kids who tipped over the entire bowl, those people should be put down like animals. They should not be allowed to continue to exist in our society. That if you ever took the whole bowl from a take one household, you should have been publicly executed in that moment. You should have been euthanized. Those are the people you send to the penal colony of Arizona. Okay? That's that's who the taking the entire bowl kids are. You take one, okay. It should almost be like a litmus test, right? Where it's like we decide what type of person you're going to be, or what degree of freedom you have. Like a kid who takes one, you have to like, he almost doesn't even want freedom, right? A kid who only takes one out of the take one bowl, that's the type of person that wouldn't even know what to do with freedom if they were given it. So just make that guy not necessarily a slave. You can give him a little bit of freedom. You can give him like wages and stuff like that, but he should be like a wage slave, right? That's who they should be. That's who the truly take one kid should be. Kids like me who took a handful, pure freedom. Pure freedom. Right? Like a take one kid should be given a job, whatever it is, welding, like agricultural work, factory work, stuff like that. They should be given that job, and they should sit in that job until they die. Or not until they die, until they retire, right? Until they're like 70 years old. And they should just sit there and do that job for the rest of their lives. Kids who took 4 to 5 pieces, they should be given the choice to do what they want in their life. Because this is the type of person who does consider other people, right? Because if you're taking the whole bowl, that's sociopathic, antisocial behavior. You're not considering anyone else. If you're taking 4 to 5 pieces, yes, you are being less considerate to others, but you still have some consideration for them while also taking care of yourself in saying, hey, I got to get mine. Is what it is. Sorry, if you're coming out at 8 p.m. to start trick or treating, that's on you. Early bird gets the worms. Suck the suck. Um, and then like I said, the kids who took the whole bowl killed immediately on site. You just have a target or a turret with like an AI targeting system to just blow that kid's brains out of the back of his fucking head. Because that's not a person you want in your society. That is not a person who considers other people in any way, shape, or form. You know, especially if it's like a 13-year-old taking the whole bowl. Yeah, kill that guy. Like a guy taking one piece, he's truly a person who is cares about the rules of society, um, but not really in a sacrificial way, almost in like a robotic way, where it's just like these are the rules, I have to follow the rules, and he only takes one piece. Um, yeah. So I think that should be the test of society. That that really, you know, that really tells who you are as a person and who you're gonna end up being. Um, but yeah, I guess we'll get into the news. I'm trying not to do too much Trump shit. I get it, he's the president and he's doing all these controversial things, but every time I see something about Trump or someone in his circle, I'm like, this is just like Israeli propaganda to blind us from the fact that, I don't know, our country's being flooded with third world immigrants and we're paying for it, and also all of our money is getting siphoned off by various oligarchs and foreign powers and stuff like that. That's kind of what Trump feels like to me. He's just a distraction from the fact that our country's being crippled. I don't know. It's just what it feels like to me. So this is Pete Hegseth, head of the Department of War. I guess they're still calling him Defense Secretary. I don't know. Maybe they didn't officially change it. I don't know if they officially changed it to the Department of War, but this is from the New York Times, which I think is a pretty. Is that the one that Jeff Bezos owns? I don't know. It's pretty fucking lib, I think. Let's see. Does it say the author here? By Greg Jaffe and Elizabeth Diaz. So we'll look this up real quick just to get an idea of who we're dealing with here. If you know what I mean. Hey, look, I give a lot of credit to the Jews. I say, hey, Jews, you did a good job. You fucking, oh my God. Holy shit, dude. So I just looked up this guy, Greg Jaffe. Sorry, I was in the middle of talking about the Jews, but I just looked up this guy, Greg Jaffe. And he, fuck, where'd it go? Anyway, it said his like parents' names were were Hirsch Goldberg Poland, a dual Israeli American citizen. What nationality is Jaffe? Well, look, Ashkenazi Jewish. Okay, look, I'll give credit to him. Credit where credit is due. I don't know. They figured something out. The Jews did figure something out, and then we'll just check this lady, Elizabeth Diaz. I'm assuming she's like a high Elizabeth Diaz. Yeah, she's like a white Spaniard, it seems like. Although you can't be too sure. You can't be too sure. Okay, so here's what she focuses on. She focuses on conservative Christian political movements and anti-abortion activism. So yeah. Yeah, she's probably one of them too. Look, it's the fucking New York Times. Both of these people are journalists. Let's call a spade a spade. They're both Jewish. We got the confirmation on Greg Jaffe. Don't know about Elizabeth Diaz. I'm sure she is though, right? I'm sure she is. So anyway, let's read about this. So this is Pete Hegseth talking about his divine right to invade the Middle East, which I do agree with. I do agree with. Christians do have a divine right to invade the Middle East. I'm not personally Christian, but if you are, I mean, yeah, it's just your culture, right? That's like the defense of people on the left. They're like, it's their culture. Let them practice their culture. Okay, well, Christian culture is sacking Jerusalem, okay, and then holding it for 100 years, and then having the Muslims take it back, and then you go and fight about it for the next 500 years. That's what Christian culture is. Okay, so let the Christians practice their culture and let them go on crusades in the Middle East. So, anyway, he spoke of overwhelming force and the U.S. military's unmatched ability to rain death and destruction from above on its apocalyptic Iranian foes. Then, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, standing in the Pentagon, issued a call to the American people for a specific kind of wartime prayer. He asked them to pray for victory in battle and the safety of their troops. Every day, on bended knee with your family, in your schools, in your churches, he said, in the name of Jesus Christ. You can't call for a crusade, buddy. Isn't Pete Hegseth Catholic? Isn't that Pete Hegseth's whole thing, dude? You should know you can't be calling for crusades. That's the Pope's job. You know, if you're gonna be Catholic, this has always been my opinion about religion. If you're gonna be a religion, you gotta be that religion. If you're gonna be a Muslim, I don't want like these halfway Muslims being like, sometimes I eat during Ramadan, blah, blah, blah. No. If you're going to be a Muslim, you should be a goat fucking, cousin marrying, pedophile, suicide bomber. That's what you should be if you're going to be a Muslim, okay? It's the Quran. It's what it tells you to do. If you're going to do it, do it. If you're going to be a Christian, be a fucking... If you're going to be a Catholic specifically, you got to be a Pope-loving, Mary-worshiping motherfucker. That's who you got to be if you're a Catholic. I don't like this out of Hegseth, I'll be honest with you. And not even because I'm against the war in Iran, although I am also. It's just on like a religious level, dude, you can't be out here calling for a crusade. You know good and goddamn well that's the Pope's job. And look, he's American, so he might actually end up doing it. But yeah, disappointing out of Mr. Hegseth. So at a time when the US and Israeli militaries are dropping thousands of bombs on majority Shiite Muslim nation, on a majority Muslim Shiite nation, the explicitly Christian nature of Mr. Hegseth's call stood out. More than any top American military leader in recent history, Mr. Hegseth has framed U.S. military operations in the Middle East, Africa, and Latin America as bigger than politics or foreign policy. Often he has imbued these actions with a Christian moral underpinning that suggests they were divinely sanctioned. Okay. I mean, yeah. I don't know. I don't really give a shit. I'll be fully... I don't really care what this guy... The sacrificing of American lives for Israel is always going to be gross to me. Whether it's imbued with a Christian message or with a secular message or with any other kind of message. It's going to be, I'm never going to view it in a positive light, and him putting it in a Christian way does not make me view it in a more negative light. I'll be fully fucking honest with you. It does not make me view it in a more negative light, because really, it's not Christian. It's Jewish. Right? Like I said, the Pope never called for a crusade, but you know who did? Bibi Netanyahu. That's who called for this crusade. So yeah, I don't know. It was funny that, what does she say? She's talking about like the Shiite Muslims. Christians and the Shiites never really had too much beef. And the main reason for that, and fuck it, I'll just talk about the Crusades now, because we're going to be talking about medieval warfare. That's going to be the topic for this week's main episode, but never had too much beef with the Shiites, because the Shiites were never really that powerful. For the most part, the Sunnis were the powerful ones. Like all the Crusades, or all the because there were some Crusades in Europe too. Actually, people don't realize. I think there were 9 Crusades and like 5 of them were in Europe. I don't know. I could be wrong. But anyway, yeah, the Sunnis were the powerful, like, Islamic kingdoms and stuff like that. Like, the Sunnis were the ones who controlled Jerusalem. So really, historically, look, obviously there's beef with Islam as a whole, but in terms of the different sects, in terms of Sunni or Shiite, Christians, specifically Catholics, really only have like a long-standing historical beef with the Sunnis. The Sunnis are the ones who were the really powerful, really rich ones who were like invading Jerusalem. Um, I don't know if the Ottomans were Sunni or Shiite. I imagine they were Sunni, just carrying on the the tradition of their, yeah, they were Sunni too. So I don't know why they're bringing up the whole Shiite thing. I do think it's because the Shiites in recent history have been the more extreme ones, although we've come to find out that it wasn't Shiite Muslims, it was Jewish Israelis. Not the point. Not the point. Um, if you believe the narrative, I'll say, if you believe the mainstream narrative, it's been the Shiites who have been the more extreme ones in recent history. And so this is our next article here, and this is Cesar Chavez erased across California as statues fall, streets renamed, and murals wiped. So, and this one's from the New York Post, which everyone's always like, oh, it's the oldest newspaper in America. Really, if you look at the news in America, it's kind of always been how it is now. Like, news in America, obviously you got like the Benjamin Franklin type newspapers, but really all it's been has been sensational propaganda. That's kind of always what the news has been in America. Like, I think that's the reason we got, I can't remember if it's the Spanish-American War or I think it's the Spanish-American War. The whole reason we got into that war is because the ship sank. I don't remember what it was called. Maybe, was it the Lusitania? I can't fucking remember. But the ship ended up sinking somewhere in like near Cuba, which was under Spanish control at the time, like late 1800s, I want to say. And then all the newspapers were like, oh, the ship sank because the Spanish attacked it. And so we went to war, went to Cuba. That's where like Teddy Roosevelt fought and all those guys. They fought down there in Cuba during the Spanish-American War. Come to find out, the reason that ship sank was because of a coal fire on board. It had nothing to do with the Spanish, like, pull it up and it'd be like, let's get this boat out of here. Let's fucking sink this thing. I don't think it was the Lusitania. I think Lusitania was World War One. Yeah, sinking of the RMS Lusitania. That's what got us. I think that's what got America a little bit more into World War One. Maybe saying it's a British ship. Maybe I'm completely fucking wrong. So it was the Spanish-American War. The ship ended up sinking, and all the news was like, it was because of the fucking Spanish. No, it was because someone fucked up the coal that was like powering the ship, right? Because this is like steamship times and all that stuff. And so yeah, the New York Times or the New York Post is sensational propaganda, but that is carrying on the legacy of American news, so you can't be too mad at it. So anyway, statues are coming down, street names are being stripped, and murals are being covered up in a rapid-fire backlash against the once revered labor leader. As officials move to distance public spaces from a legacy now under scrutiny. In San Fernando, a statue of Chavez was removed Thursday, while at Santa Ana College, murals and other campus imagery bearing his likeness have been covered. So, in Fresno, city leaders unanimously voted to strip Chavez's name from a major boulevard, restoring its original designation, a dramatic reversal of a tribute that once symbolized pride in the civil rights icon. Symbols that once cemented Chavez's status as a civil rights hero are being dismantled piece by piece, following stunning allegations that he raped and molested 2 girls beginning at the age of 12 and raping his longtime ally, Dolores Huerta. From city halls to college campuses, anyway. So yeah, they're removing all this shit, all this Cesar Chavez shit, because he raped some people, which, I mean, I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like you kind of got to stand by your guys. You know, especially, I guess Cesar Chavez was significantly more recent than like George Washington or whatever. And yeah, no, never. I was gonna try to compare it to people like wanting to tear down Christopher Columbus statues and stuff like that, but I'm pretty sure even in the 90s, it was like you can't rape 12-year-old girls. So yeah, I say tear the statues down. Or when was Chavez? He was like, I guess, 60s and 70s. That's when the civil rights movement was big. So that's probably when he was really popping off. But it said he died in the 90s. Anyway, yeah, that's all I've got for this episode, guys. I hope everyone listening has a good day, a good week, a good year, a good life. And I'll see you guys in the next episode, which should be pretty good. Ping.